Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely mind-blowing, rags-to-riches story, arguably history's most mythologized figure, Napoleon Bonaparte. We're going to trace how this scrawny, completely isolated teenager with literally zero money to his name somehow transformed into the absolute master of Europe.
So, to really wrap our heads around where he started, we kind of have to look at where he ended up. Just take a look at the sheer, unbelievable scale of the opulence in this coronation scene. I mean, you are looking at the absolute zenith of power here. Notice the insane wealth, the velvet, the gold, the sheer imperial weight radiating off of everyone in the room. This is Emperor Napoleon, a guy holding the fate of an entire continent in his hands. But what if I told you that the guy wearing that crown used to literally starve in a freezing room wearing threadbare clothes?
He actually talked about it later in life. He once remarked, that he knew all about hardship because he lived it back when he was a first lieutenant, eating dry bread. And that's our absolutely crucial takeaway today. The glittering emperor you just saw, he was preceded by a starving, broke, yet fiercely disciplined young soldier. Let's see how this all builds.
Section 1. Starting from extreme poverty.
Let's rewind the clock to 1784. Imagine this, a scrawny 15-year-old kid arriving in the grand, super intimidating capital of France, and his pockets are completely empty. The second he walks into the military academy, he hits this massive social wall. On one side, you've got your typical Parisian cadets, right? Wealthy kids throwing parties, hitting the theaters, just living it up. And on the other side, you've got young Napoleon. Since he had absolutely no money, he was forced into this extreme isolation. He actively avoided hanging out because, well, he couldn't afford to laugh and play like the rest of them. Instead, he channeled every single ounce of his energy into rigorous study. The guy was fiercely proud. He kept his poverty a total secret and just buried himself in his books.
Section 2. Sacrifices for the family.
When Napoleon was just 16, his dad passed away. And suddenly, bam, the weight of the entire Bonaparte family drops right onto this teenager's incredibly thin shoulders. To make his poverty super tangible for us, check out this literal translation from his tailor's notebook. Making broadcloth trousers, 4 francs. Making underwear, 1 franc. Making embroidery, 1 franc. Our sources point out that he actually haggled the tailor down on the cost of making his underwear just so he could afford to survive. I mean, it's an incredible detail, right? It really grounds this giant of history in the gritty, day-to-day reality of just trying to get by.
And speaking of getting by, 1. That is the exact number of meals Napoleon ate every single day. He would purposely wait until 3 p.m. to eat his one and only meal. A totally calculated move just to stretch out whatever meager funds he had. He was practically starving to death, but he hid the whole thing behind this fierce, unyielding pride so nobody would dare pity him.
You really see how these sacrifices profoundly shaped who he became. I mean, he completely gave up his own youth to be the head of the family. He paid for his younger brother Louis's education straight out of his incredibly tiny sub-lieutenant's salary. To make ends meet, he shared a tiny room just to split rent. He's eating dry bread, brushing his own worn-out uniforms to avoid paying a servant, and at his lowest point, he literally pawned his own watch to a friend's brother just to get some cash. You just don't endure that level of hardship without forging an absolute iron will.
Section 3. Military genius in Toulon. Okay, so we're moving from this quiet, grinding suffering of his youth right into the loud, absolute chaos of war. This is where the starving student finally puts all that rigorous study into practice. August 1793, anti-revolutionary royalists commit high treason and literally just hand over the vital French port of Toulon to the English. The French army scrambles to lay siege. Then, in September, the French artillery commander Dalmartin gets wounded in battle. Suddenly, there's this massive leadership void, and instantly, almost like he'd been waiting his whole life for this exact second, young Napoleon steps right up. He takes command of the artillery with this total, unshakable confidence.
And he didn't just charge, he completely revolutionized their entire artillery strategy. His approach was totally unprecedented. He was seeing angles, choke points, and elevations that the older generals were completely blind to. His strategic mastery at Toulon didn't just win them the battle, it proved his undeniable worth to the Republic and officially put him on the map as a major military talent.
Section 4. Saving the convention government. But the stakes? They're about to get so much higher. Jumping ahead to 1795, we're no longer just fighting over a port. We're talking about the survival of the French Republic itself.
Paris is an absolute chaos. The post-revolution convention government is teetering on the edge of total collapse. There's this massive, highly organized uprising by royalist sympathizers sweeping through the streets, and they're threatening to tear down the government and undo the whole revolution. Just total panic everywhere.
Just to put this into perspective, look at the sheer scale of the threat here. You've got 40,000 armed rebels marching directly on the gates of the government. 40,000. The defending forces? Vastly outnumbered and totally demoralized. So in a desperate, kind of wild move, the government points to that young, super ambitious artillery officer they remembered from too long, Napoleon, and they give him absolute command to save them.
And notice how insanely fast he operates. On the night of the 13th of Vendémiaire, he takes command, and he does not hesitate for a second. He rapidly deploys his artillery to these narrow, key choke points in the city streets. When the rebels advance, he fires decisively, no flinching whatsoever. He completely crushes the rebellion and restores order in a matter of hours. The brutal, rapid-fire efficiency of his tactical mind literally saved the government in a single day.
Section 5. The woman who changed his life.
But right at the moment he becomes the undisputed hero of the Republic, we've actually got to pause, because into this totally rigid, tactical, battle-hardened life steps the one variable that Napoleon absolutely could not control with artillery fire. Who is the woman destined to capture the heart of this hardened, impoverished hero? After all the bloodshed, all the dry bread, and the cold military calculations, who actually breaks through to the guy underneath?
Enter Josephine. The sources describe her just beautifully. Deep blue eyes, draped in soft, light Indian silk. She was the absolute picture of soft elegance, a stark, almost shocking contrast to Napoleon's rigid, calculating, war-torn vibe. She was a woman of high society, and she had never, ever encountered a heart that burned quite like Napoleon's.
Because, you see, his greatest conquest wouldn't actually be on the battlefield. All those years of isolation, all that unspent emotion from his youth, all that fierce, unyielding passion, he took every single drop of it and poured it into a deep, consuming, almost obsessive love for her. The impoverished soldier who had nothing finally found something he wanted more than survival.
So what happens now? How will this unexpected, totally all-consuming love alter the destiny of this incredibly driven man? When the mind of a military genius gets hijacked by the unpredictable human heart, what happens to the empire he is destined to build? Well, I'll leave you to ponder that beating heart beneath the emperor's armor. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.